Hey everybody, welcome to the Doomcast. My name's Dan Upton. I'm doing toy reviews again, and this week we're checking out the Marvel Legends Mojo. Now, this is a figure that was released as part of a 4-pack and also individually. It's also a re-release of a figure that was part of, it was a Build-A-Figure for a previous wave, which I never actually picked up. But I opted for this individual release of this figure instead of the 4-pack, and there's a few pointed reasons why. Stick around. I'm Dan Upton, and this is the Doomcast. Mojo. Mojo is, what can I say? Mojo is from a race of creatures called the Spineless Ones that were introduced in Claremont's run of the X-Men. Mojo World is effectively a separate dimension controlled entirely by TV ratings, and they use, in some cases, manipulating other realities, other dimensions as part of that. Fun fact about Longshot, who we're going to be reviewing here as soon as he comes out. I did not get the 4-pack, once again, that has a Longshot in it. Longshot was also raised on Mojo World to compete in gladiatorial games. He is also Shatterstar's son and father. Real weird how that works, but that also makes Shatterstar his son and his own grandfather, which is a whole video that I did. You can check that out in the little thing that popped up there. Unlikely to be very interested in this figure unless you are a very specific fan of the X-Men or a fan of the specific Claremont run in which this absolute piece of disgusting garbage appeared. But it's probably a figure that's worth having in your collection. So here's why. Even if you're probably not a fan of Mojo specifically, you're not a fan of Longshot, he is a huge, really grotesque figure that makes for an interesting centerpiece to maybe a villain's shelf, or, you know, maybe it... I'm touching his nipples, I feel disgusting. Maybe you just like very articulated, grotesque looking figures to display. This is it. I mean, he's clearly a cyborg that has this this hover chair thing to support his huge frame, because again, he's from a, the spineless ones don't have vertebrae as far as I understand, but that means because he's got these insect legs, there's a ton of articulation here, a ton of possibility for different displays. More. You do also get, and this is hard to keep in the frame, this cybernetic attachment here, which is like a tail, almost makes him look a little bit like a scorpion, that itself, although in comics is very articulatable, this thing is, he's really not so much in practice as a figure. But as a whole piece, is probably a good 8 inches tall. And the weight of the whole thing is supported by these translucent little nubs here at the very bottom. The center mass of his body is kind of squishy. You can like kind of press it just a little bit. But there's a hard piece in there that clips to the frame. Is it a worthwhile figure to have? For the $50-some, if you're specifically an X-Men completionist and you have an X-Men villain shelf, this is probably a buy for me. However, if you aren't an X-Men person and you just like grotesque figures, also probably a great way to go. I would consider this probably a lot of fun to have. You've got a lot of movement, although that movement is mostly restricted to the different arms that he has. He doesn't have like an observation pad or anything like that. Usually I think he's depicted in comics as having like some sort of data pad for ratings and whatnot. I do wish that this little crotch switch was one that actually flipped. it doesn't. That would be a fun little detail. Not a deal breaker, though. It is weird that the chest piece, yeah, if you put him all the way back, it sort of separates from the belly piece a little bit. It becomes a bit obvious. But as with most of these Legends, even for deluxe figures, it could use a line wash. You can always give your figures their own line wash if you want to, but I understand, why Hasbro probably doesn't. It's a level of detail that maybe doesn't add all that much in terms of aesthetic for individual collectors, and probably doesn't add to its selling value. And that's probably why they don't do it, because it's just an added expense. So, scale of 1 to 10. If I had to put a rating on this figure, I'd give it an 8. I don't have the other version of this in order to compare it to. I am a big fan of the whole Longshot, Mojo, Shatterstar, Dazzler conundrum. I am not enough of a fan of the X-Babies to pay what I calculate to be roughly $30 more upcharge for just one of the X-Babies. If this is $55 on its own, and a Longshot and Dazzler are each $25, then that puts it at $100 right there, just about. Is that little Wolverine worth the $25? If you're specifically a fan of it, maybe. For me, it was not. So, since I only really needed the Longshot and Mojo, that's what I've decided to purchase. Do I think he's great? Yeah, good level of detail. Maybe not for you if you're not an X-Men completionist. For what he is, perfect. Thanks everybody for checking this out. This has been the Doomcast. We'll see you again next week.